Welcome to episode 8 of the Jibs Podcast. Today we speak with Retea, whose motto is drink tea, educate a refugee.
It's just about getting up and doing it and finding the time, finding the people and making it happen.
You take control and you say, okay, this needs to be done, and you do it.
And you're never ready to start a business. You just either do it or you don't.
Welcome to the Jibs Podcast, showcasing Detroit's movers and shakers, bringing you stories that reveal the gusto and grit that's long defined the city and its people. Together, we'll uncover the history and direction of the Motor City, one voice at a time. This is the Jibs Podcast with Jibran Ahmed.
Welcome to episode 8 of the Jibs Podcast. I am here with Ali Saad from Retea. Let's get right into it. Can you guys kind of explain who you are and your backgrounds?
Sure. What's that?
Yeah.
So my name is Saad. When you say who we are and our backgrounds, just let me know if you want me to clarify anything else. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
I co-founder of Retea, and in addition to working at Retea, I also teach at a university. I teach negotiation and conflict resolution, so that's how I balance myself.
My name is Ali Saad, co-founder of Retea. My 9 to 5, I would say, is I do consulting for automotive dealerships, helping them with their online presence, marketing, sales, things like that.
Yeah. So can you guys tell me a little bit about Retea?
Sure. So I'm tell you how we started, right?
Yeah.
So Saad had just finished Columbia University with his master's in conflict resolution. He was trying to start up a nonprofit. We're first cousins, so that's how we know each other.
Yeah.
And we were talking over dinner, and he was talking about how it was difficult to get funding and to get up off the ground. He wants to do this work, and it was North Africa, Middle East.
Yep.
So we're going through, and I'm like, well, an easy way to get revenue is easy, quote unquote, is to sell a product and use the proceeds from it. Social mission focused products are getting more and more popular, so it's easier to get those things up off the ground.
Right.
So that's how the idea kind of sparked. So I had been looking for something where I wanted to be able to start being able to give back more, using my talents for things like that.
Right.
So we said, all right, we need to do two things. One, we need to figure out what type of product would work well, and two, what social mission related to conflict resolution that we could figure out. So from a product standpoint, we were having dinner and we were drinking tea. So, tea, we're both of Arab descent, and tea is something very popular within our culture. And based on, research that we started doing, we realized it's actually quite popular around the world. Outside the United States, it's the number 2 consumed beverage after water. Within the United States, how low was it?
It's pretty low, but the most consumed liquid in the U.S. up to 2013 is actually Coca-Cola. People in the U.S. drink more Coke than they did water.
No way.
Which we found was absolutely, that's crazy, right? Yeah.
So, looking at that, I was like, okay, I think there's an opportunity here with that. So we started to go down the path, I went with that a little bit, and then we were like, okay, we may have something there, right? And then we're like, okay, from the social aspect, what do we start, what seed do we plant and start working with that? So from a conflict resolution standpoint, there's a huge refugee crisis, right? So that's kind of where we started looking into
This was
refugee.
2 to 3 years ago when the Syrian refugee crisis really began to sort of get really bad.
Yeah, so it's in the news. Obviously, there's conflict related pieces there. So we're like, okay, let's look into this a bit. And we found quite quickly that children that are refugees or put in situations based on war, conflict, natural disaster, quickly lose access to education.
Yeah.
And the UN says that anytime scenarios like that where there are refugees involved, if only 4% of the funds that are dedicated to helping those refugees, so food, water, shelter, and all that kind of stuff, if 4% is dedicated to education, then those kids will be able to continue to be educated. Less than 2%
Right.
is there. So obviously, in those situations, we're talking about millions of dollars, but we're not talking about a huge undertaking. We're not talking about having to undertake that whole thing. It's just a piece of it and trying to get that percentage up. So we started looking into that piece, and when I elaborate a little more on this, I did more research there. That conflict, refugee.
So what we found was that often when refugees move to other countries as a result of natural disaster or whatever it may be, they're often not integrated into public schooling system, which leaves them in refugee camps without public schooling system. And obviously a kid or a teenager that's not going to school all day, then what else are they doing, right? They lose out on a lot of opportunities to grow and develop, and then they also lose out on the potential opportunity to be in school that they would naturally be in had they not been in the environment that they were forced into.
Right.
And that a child, this is from the UN again, a child that loses 1 year of school is coined the term a lost generation. That's how far back they can fall, losing 1 year of school. A child that loses 1 month of school is almost like they've fallen that far behind, a year's worth of school. So it's one of those things where keep that continuity there. What can we do to help keep that continuity there? So we looked into nonprofits that were working in that realm. So our main nonprofit that we work with when we first started was the International Rescue Committee. They actually have a program called the Year of School. So you can actually dedicate funds to that, and they will educate a child for a whole year. So, books, school, temporary school, shelters, that whole thing. So we're like, okay, there's something there. So then this is where we kind of kicked off. I'm like, all right, let's really hit the ground, do research, figure out what's going on here, both from a T perspective and from the social mission and the messaging there, and see how it resonates.
All of that together.
And can we bring it together in a way that resonates well, clear, succinct, and short? You can't. You talk about that elevator pitch, how you do that, and this T and refugees. What do you guys? What does that make any sense together? So from a tea perspective, we did probably close to a year's worth of research.
Yeah.
Why don't people drink tea here?
It's so popular in other parts of the world. Why wasn't it? Like, why don't people drink tea? Or they drink a lot of coffee, they drink a lot of other beverages. Why is tea just not something that people have on regular basis?
So we found, I think it fell down again, a lot of research to 4 main points. It tastes like flavored water, and that falls kind of to how do you make it, the potency of the drink and such. It goes bitter. That goes to kind of the quality of the tea and things like that. I don't know how to make it. What do I got to do to make it? What tools do I need? How do I do that? And those are all barriers, And then there's too much choice. You walk into a store and it's like, whoa, there's 100 things to choose from, and I don't know what to choose. So we said, okay, if we can work on those 4 things, would that be something that A, is a product that people want, and B, consume it regularly?
Right.
So what we said is, all right, we're gonna make a short menu of teas, high quality teas that are easy to make and that are all full of flavor and delicious. Okay. So we hundreds of teas tasted.
I've tested, sourced so many different teas and played with so many different blends, and we went back and forth so much because we would source things, we'd blend things. I would try to be like, maybe this is it. I would try to be like, definitely this is not it. And then Ali has a what do they call it?
A super taster.
Yeah.
So like a 1/4% of the population.
Yeah.
It becomes super taster. So it's either you have more taste buds or your taste buds hold on to different things. What they hold on to longer. So like you make things bitter for a longer time or things like that. So that was one thing that we kind of brought in, kind of like a bit of a scientific piece to it. The whole super taster piece, and people can taste particular things, and what does that mean for people enjoying this?
People often would say that tea is complicated, and we wanted to make sure in the flavor profile that was the last experience that they would ever have with the tea, that it was just super approachable, super easy to enjoy. So we sourced a lot of different teas and tested and blended to make sure that that's what we would end up getting.
Yeah. What we found is, full of flavor, our unique proprietary recipes that work really well and are forgiving, as you brew it and you go through that whole process, and then watch the bitter profile.
Right.
That was the whole thing with the super taster piece. People that would be like, oh, that's bitter, and I'd be like, and I ask a few follow-up questions. I'm like, yeah, you're probably a super taster, So we kind of would start relying on those people to, from a bitter profile, did you taste bitter there? Was it there? Was it not?
Right.
Because there's some people that just don't taste it at all.
Yeah.
So those are some of the major things that we were looking through. And then we kind of started honing in on the flavors. Ended up with 4 main flavors that are very, very popular, and to this day are still our 4 main popular flavors. And then we expanded to 10, and we said in the beginning we can't go more than 12. It'd be too much, And we're at 10, and it's been working well. And then from a refugee standpoint, we really worked on the messaging there, trying to figure out how do we integrate this piece. So that's where we came up with our slogan: "Drink tea, educate a refugee."
Yeah.
kind of rings.
Yeah. That was
But
Took
you
us a
know,
while to come up with that.
Yeah.
A lot of different slogans before we came up with something catchy like that.
yeah.
so we kind of explain it on our website. We explain it on our packaging. We found that quantifying it, because you see other brands doing like one for one type things.
Right.
So we're like, well, how can we quantify this? It's actually quite difficult to quantify. You buy a pouch of tea. What does that mean for a refugee? So based on some calculations we've done internally, we were able to do a 1 for 5 or a 1 for 10 based on the size of the pouch you have. So one pouch, up to 10 hours of education, one pouch up to 5 hours of education. And then a portion of those proceeds are going to that. But it really depends on the country that they're in. Obviously, a refugee in the United States, the cost of educating them would be higher than a refugee perhaps in Afghanistan. So we're very transparent in that and in what we're trying to do. But we found that it really does resonate, because if you keep a child, and it really breaks down to this when we break it down to people, if you keep a child in school and you keep them educated, it helps them, it helps their family, and it helps their community. There's parts of the world where, due to, again, whether it's war, natural disaster, whatever it is, and a child or a generation loses access to education 5, 10, 15 years. Well, now that child is 20, 25 years old, doesn't have the education level that perhaps would help them in this global market, that's there, and even locally, and needs to find a job and support their family, and what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And it almost becomes like a downward spiral, because if conflict breaks out, and you can get to all these different things, but it's with, even here in the United States, what do we always focus on? Jobs and education. It's the same thing no matter where you go. Educate your population and have jobs, and keep people able to support their families, support themselves, and they have to have a good education.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really apparent, especially after watching the Betsy DeVos interview.
I haven't seen the full clip, but
Right. Package of tea translates into 10 hours of education. What does that 10 hours exactly look like? Is that 10 hours of a teacher teaching a classroom?
Sure. So what we do is we allocate the funding to our partner, who's International Rescue Committee. Excuse me. They're taking that funds basically, and they're supporting refugee education programs and whatever it takes to run those refugee education programs. So it could be funding a teacher's salary in order for that teacher to be in front of the classroom, but it could be funding class material like books or pencils or
desks, chairs,
desks or whatever it may be, or even transportation, getting those kids to school. So whatever it takes to get those kids in school, that's where the funding is going to. So it's not just in particular, teacher being in front of the classroom.
Right.
What we'd like to do is get to a point, hopefully, as we grow and get larger, is to start allocating, proceeds into, for lack of a better term, into like a fund or a nonprofit organization where it has a similar focus, and when natural disasters happen or when it's imminent, and let's say the UN says, hey, there's an extreme need here, and for it's going to cost $10,000 to put up temporary school buildings and desks, and immediately get these schools up and going. Well, then this foundation, wherever it is, this fund that we can set up, we cut a check and send it to them and get it up and going. And whether it's UN or we want to start working with some nonprofits that are on the ground that are getting this done, just to have it immediately where the need is immediate, we can do that. In addition to the constant 1 for 10, 1 for 5 type giving, and then be transparent with all of that, so that people see, you have this product that you enjoy, that is a product that can stand alone and do well, and it's doing good beyond the product itself.
So I guess on that note, a lot of companies are purely for profit. There's no social mission attached to what they're doing. So in your opinion, how important has it been for your bottom line to have this social mission attached?
Yeah.
So
Do you mind if I say something?
Yeah.
We learned very quickly early on that you got to build a good product for people to purchase it.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be an amazing social mission and really captivating, and people love it, but they're not going to purchase that product regularly if they don't enjoy having that product and that product doesn't solve some kind of need for them. So with that said, early on we figured that out, and we wanted to make sure that we really deliver on the product, in the sense that we wanted to make sure that our product provided an incentive for the customer to come back and purchase it. And that incentive wasn't in the social mission, but rather it was in the tea and the flavor that profile of tea provided.
And especially with a beverage or a consumable, if you have something that doesn't taste good, that's going to be a problem. There's a, well, not only that, you taste it once, like, oh, that didn't taste good. There's a deep connection that happens there, you know, and it's like, I tasted that and I don't want to taste that again. Whereas where you have other products that aren't consumables, I would think people would probably give it a shot again, or you see somebody else, or you can just test that. But with something that doesn't taste good, I don't want to taste that again. You know, so yeah, it really fell down to the product itself and being a good standalone product. That was our always thing. We wanted to be able to take the product, put it down, and sell itself.
So how do you, so just starting the company itself, how do you go from a prototype to even learning about how to make tea to your first product?
A lot of testing,
Yeah.
a lot of making some mistakes and trying some teas that don't taste good at all.
So we relied a lot on family and friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
For testing, for prototyping, from packaging,
Yeah,
color, name. I mean, we're realizing from a approachability standpoint,
absolutely.
the name really mattered. And we even did it before
The
where
name of the tea.
the name of the tea specifically, you know, where that was one of the things, again, is tea approachable. People walk into a place and here's this foreign sounding name, you know, of something that I'd never heard of. How am I supposed to understand what that could possibly taste like,
Right.
you know? So I'll give you an example, and we're transparent on this. Our toasty tea is traditionally a genmaicha. But if you go to somebody and say, this is a genmaicha, unless they've experienced that or know what that is, like, I have no idea what that would taste like. You know, especially in a packaging where it's closed, if you're buying it on a store shelf or buying it online. So we're like, we can't call it genmaicha.
Yeah.
We have to call it something else. So we did a lot of testing. So we sell at the Eastern Market, and we would test different names of the tea, and okay, did it sell better? Name this, did it sell better?
And it would make a difference. The name alone would catch interest, or sometimes it wouldn't catch any interest at all. People wouldn't try it just because of the name that was on the package.
Exactly. And then even like our one of our top sellers is our Assam Black, which is is my favorite black tea to have. So we originally were like, okay, we want to make the black teas easier, the base black teas easier for people to choose from. And so we got like examples like coffee.
Right.
You got bold, you got light, you got medium, and all that. So we said, well, let's just do that with the tea. We'll go light, what do we call it?
Light black, medium black.
Yeah, exactly. Light black, medium black, and we were still working on our bold. We could not give away the light black. So light black is our Assam today.
It's the same.
It's the same thing. When we renamed it,
different name.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. People would, at the Eastern Market, it's such a great place to test because people would come and see the package, they interact with it, and we too would they pick up and we ask which sample would you like to try, have all of them as sample, and the name just distance people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Why do you think people stayed away from that?
the name would either be inviting or not inviting, or it would, I don't know.
So I think even with what we did with the light and the medium, I just read a book by Maxwell. What was Malcolm Maxwell? Yeah. Blink. It was actually it was very, very interesting, and he did an analysis related to coffee, and how if you were to ask people, what type of coffee do you really enjoy? People are like, I want a robust, a bold tasting coffee. But then if you actually look at sales, he goes, everybody's wrong. What everybody realizes is some large percentage is weak, medium, flavored coffee. That's where the sales are, but people don't tell you that. So that was another thing that we learned very quickly: how to ask questions. What does that feedback mean? How much do we weigh that feedback?
Mm-hmm.
Because people were telling us, I wish it was easier if I could just scale that. You could tell me light, medium, and
Right.
bold, and go. We did that. It didn't work. We renamed it, and now it's one of our top sellers.
Yeah.
So it was the whole approachability thing, and testing, and relying on friends and family and feedback from customers, and just really being able to be nimble and take that feedback and understand what that feedback is.
Yeah.
and how does that affect it? And like anytime we were like, so when we started first making our packaging, we label by hand. We'd make the labels in-house. We'd go somewhere to with his laser printer and print those and put those on and do all of that in-house. Why? Because if we need to make an adjustment, we just go on to our design, adjust the name, put it on there and see what happens. Whereas like if you want to do a manufacturing run and spend, we need to do 1,000 of these labels.
Easy. It would be significantly higher because you would have to make commitments to this specific name, this specific style, this specific ingredients, and it would have to go on there. You would have to sell 10,000 of them before you go on to the next batch. Whereas with us, if we wanted to come up with a new flavor profile or just change the name, let's go on the desktop, change the name, print that label, put it on the bag, let's go to the market, let's see what feedback we get on it. And that really helped us learn quite a bit, learn really fast too.
Right. Your packaging is beautiful, by the way.
Thank
I think
you.
it's so good.
We did that a lot. So
Yeah.
happy about it.
What kind of advice would you have for somebody wanting to start a product-based company?
So we were at a food conference in November, and we were talking with a woman, and she said she had just launched her product. I use this as an example, and we were talking a bit, and I was like, "Oh yeah, we did a ton of research beforehand. Now we had, we're lucky that we had the ability to do that. Some people don't, but we had the ability to do it. Probably years worth of research and testing, and to go through and what's going to work and what's not. What can sell if you just put it down and sell on its own and sell itself without you having to pitch it, And we really focused on that. It was ultimately really put it on this coffee table and would somebody pick it up? Would somebody be interested in it? What's that tactile response? Are they going to read it? That whole thing before we brought the product to market. I was like, we can't bring it to market unless it can sell itself. So doing a lot of research beforehand to bring a viable product and tweak and adjust and use your friends, use your family. If you have a connection at a store where you can put it out there and see if it moves and see if it doesn't move, where does it move, where does it not move? Test. Be nimble, be able to change. This woman that we had spoke with, I went through all that. I was like, oh yeah, we did this and the other thing. She goes, I wish I would have done that. I've done so much money into this trying to get it up off the ground, and I haven't done that research yet.
Right.
And I'm like, I was surprised because, getting a product up off the ground can be very expensive.
Yeah.
So doing that research, getting that feedback, being able to be nimble, being able to adjust. What do you think?
I would say just, when Ali says doing that research, like we were able to prototype a lot of things without making any commitments to anything, to any suppliers, to any distributors, because we wanted feedback on tea, then we would just take that blend and go have 5 of our friends try it and get feedback. And before we made any commitment to build this product, we knew whether people were going to like this or not, or we knew whether it satisfied the need or the problem that we were trying to solve. So just setting yourself up to be able to do that and knowing that you can do that and learn all these things for practically really cheap or really free really helps you continue to build, because there's a lot of learning that you need to go through before you have a scalable business. And to be able to do that with minimal commitments and minimal resources, where you're really focused on learning, will really set you up to be able to do that, if that makes sense.
And another thing I would add is you're gonna have setbacks.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't get down on yourself. And for example, you can ask somebody all day long, oh, would you buy this? Oh, yes, I would. The ultimate test is when you put it down and will they really spend the money. And then when we launched our site and put that up, we were like, okay, let's see if this works. And we were ready to be like, okay, this may succeed or it may fail, but we know that we're gonna adjust and go, and be able to do that. Mindset in that also plays a big part, because we've had ups and downs. We have a store in New York that did really, really well for months. And then, whatever happened there at that store with their adjustments and changing and all that, we aren't there anymore, and it's one of those, they just stopped ordering. And it's one of those, okay, you're obviously making a profit on it, you're obviously selling it very well, we see coming in there, resupplying it, that it's one of your top sellers.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and you got to be able to kind of roll the punches and adjust and tweak and go.
Also, testing means wasting a lot of time, because a lot of the times you test and you don't learn something, or a lot of the times you test and you don't necessarily solve your problem just because you put a test together or learn about what you're trying to solve. So just be ready for that. you're gonna waste time naturally.
So, starting a small business in Michigan, I've gotten to talk to a lot of different types of entrepreneurs who have told me one of two things. They feel like they don't have a lot of support in Detroit from the local governments or from like small business administration or whatever. And then there are people that are like, oh, there's so many resources here that are really helping us out. What is your thought on that, and where are you from?
So I live in New York.
Yeah.
So for me, there was a lot of resources here available to small business. When you said what you said early on, the first thing, like, no, we came to Detroit because we feel like there's resources here. Not only in the sense that there's resources available from government, maybe other institutions, but people have the time, are willing, and are supportive, and are giving. Like, we just meet random people at the Eastern Market that would just give us so much more than, I don't want to say that people in New York, but my experience in New York is everybody's got something to do. It's really difficult to get a hold of a buyer. Nobody's going to answer your email unless they know you or there's an introduction. You're going to get a few minutes from somebody, that's the max, because everybody's got so much going on. Whereas here, it was like, everybody was like so supportive and so giving and so like, and we were able to find resources to build a product from, like the common kitchen space that we use, and that's where I'm at.
No, I agree. I think that there have been a ton of resources. I think no matter where you are, and I think this is one of our strengths as well, is you have to be a go-getter. You got to be able to go out there and say, I need to find this out. Even here, sometimes you don't get a hold of people. You need to find that out. And we were fortunate enough to be able to decide, do we want to launch in New York? Because Saad, mainly lives out of there and commutes back and forth between here and Detroit. Or do we want to do here in Detroit? Obviously, we're from Detroit. We're from this area, born and raised for myself. Saad immigrated when he was young. But and we wanted to, but it's like, where do we think our product has the best shot? And after doing the research and really, like Saad was saying, being able to access people, being able to call and talk to somebody pick up the phone and tell you something, it's like, okay, I think there's more viability here, in that comparison. But again, you gotta be able to, nobody's gonna give it to you. You gotta be able to know, okay, I need to figure this out, okay, there's this problem, and you need to find the solution. If the solution doesn't exist, then you need to make it, But that's really supportive here.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. So both of you have full-time jobs. So what personally for both of you motivates you to want to build this business, be focused on the mission, and just keep going?
So on the tea product itself, there's a market for it. When my wife and I have been married for almost 10 years now, and she loves tea, right? And she kept trying to get me into it, and I keep trying these different teas. And I'm like, this and that. And I wanted to get into it, just in the sense that sometimes I would enjoy some teas, and I was like, I just don't know what's there, And it's one of those things where you realize there's a niche, there's a niche there, and we can possibly provide the solution for it, especially a product that has such a history. Tea itself, thousands of years. We can bring it here to the American market, in a different way, approach it in a different way. So I think that's exciting, And then there's the social mission piece. We want to help these kids, We came, we're both of Lebanese descent, and we came from, a situation where, at least for me, the kids from our background had it and could make do, but then, there were these kids in the Palestinian refugee camps, that didn't have it as easy. And then there's, you just see it more and more, and it's just like, these kids, they want to learn. In our research, you see, you want to live a normal life. What do they say? I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to be, the same things that your kids hear, and the whole system to support them, it's gone. It's disturbing. So give them education so they can help themselves, their family, and their community. They can be the solution, and that really drives me. Anytime we get down and we have a setback, I go, at least we gotta help these kids, and we have a product that people want, and it can do it, Tea and Refugee, how does that work? Well, we found a way, I guess.
Right.
Here's how it works.
So I used to teach English in Turkey, and this was 2014.
Sure.
And so around June, July, I was in Istanbul,
Yeah.
and you know, everything was normal. And then I can remember the next day, I was in the main touristy areas. There's thousands and thousands of refugees
Yeah.
who had just come from one of the major attacks, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember I was with my friend. I don't speak Arabic, but my friend, he speaks Arabic. And this kid came up to us, and he was like 10. And he's like, I just saw both my parents get killed. I'm taking care of my 5-year-old brother. Is there any way that you can help us out, right?
Yeah.
So we gave him whatever money we had, but
Then
right, I that's the worst feeling,
Yeah.
is not being
I've been
able to
there.
provide
I've been
anything else.
Yeah, I've been there. So that's the thing, like you don't see it here, but when you're like in Lebanon or in other places, you see it. Like we were a few years back, I was in Lebanon, and we were driving on the freeway, and there's kids barefoot, there's a lot of traffic on the freeway, would come up to cars selling gum, very small things to try to, you're talking like 5, 6, 4, it's crazy, and I was just like in shock, because now you see it in Lebanon because there's 1 million refugees there, which is like 25% of the population, and yeah, there's a lot of resources that goes to meeting maybe basic needs of food, water, and shelter, and then what? Then what happens? Because then what?
I mean, even if it was a fall day here, and you saw a kid that's supposed to be in school, not in school, what do people say? Why isn't this kid in school? What's going on? What do we got to do? You got millions of kids in the middle of the day. What are they doing? What are they doing? They want to be in school.
Right.
So I mean, I think people connect with it here. I think everybody connects with. You see a child, it's like, why aren't you in school? I think there's a visceral connection to just, we need to help these kids, and everybody values education.
As a company, as an organization, where do you see Retea in 5 years, 10 years?
Everybody's drinking Retea.
So tea is something that I drink every day on a regular basis, and I feel like it's drank around the world, and in some places consumed per average like 6 or 7 cups per person per day. So I mean, tea should be and can be an everyday beverage, and it can be enjoyed like that. And there's plenty of options for people that they're not necessarily exposed to that they could be.
It's hard.
Some of the thoughts that I put in mind.
I think from a very broad sense, like Saad was saying, people are consuming more tea, and we would like them to consume more tea. We want to try to help facilitate that perception change. Where it's difficult because there's also that nimble piece. How do we get there?
Yeah.
There's being in stores where it's talked about working with distributors. There's online sales, cafes. There's all these different markets that we can try to be in. Can you be in a mall? How long does it take to do that? I find it really difficult to answer that question without just saying.
I think
People
the perceptual
consume-
process is something that we definitely want to sort of break down.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Where-
People perceiving tea in a different way.
Yeah.
People.
I had a friend that so tea is not approachable. It's fancy, or it's perceived as something that only if you're smart and you drink it at 1 p.m. and you have your pinky up in the air with it, and there's tea is not approachable in those ways, and I think that's definitely something that we want to try and break down. So that's.
Yeah. I mean, for about 40% of our customers were tea drinkers until they started consuming our tea.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're in a store now where they put us in the Made in Michigan section, and then we had people contact us and say, I can't find your tea there. I'm like, well, where did you go? I went to the tea aisle, and we're like, yeah, we need to be in the tea aisle as well. We consciously said, don't put us in the tea aisle because of perception, because we knew that, 40% of our customers aren't tea drinkers. They're not gonna be in the tea aisle. So where do we put us, and how do we do that? There's still a lot for us to learn that's going to relate to perception, and it's the whole purchase journey.
Yeah.
From when they see it to when they touch it, to they purchase it, to they brew it, to they consume it, and can recycle it back through.
Yeah.
You know, 5 years from now, I'd be happy 5 years from now to have a strong regional presence in the Midwest. You know, to be able to do something really good here in Detroit, understand, you know, what that formula is, and be able to repeat it in other major cities, Chicago, Cleveland, Indianapolis, you know, and kind of learn, continue to be humble. So I guess I'm kind of thinking out loud as well.
Oh, that's great.
So
Do you see Retea being your full-time job?
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Definitely hoping for that.
Yeah.
So look, I think we've gone, like a lot of the stuff that you've gone over. Although the 5-year question, we have never really kind of talked about that. Like
It
out
changes.
it changes. We've said it to so many people, and our thing is when we're able to talk to people about it and they get it. You know, it's hard to have an elevator pitch because you got, okay, I need to talk to you about the T piece, I need to talk about social mission, and then you need to find a way to tie it in.
Right.
But when you sit and you talk about it with somebody, they're like, wow, and it's memorable, and people walk away, you know, with it in a positive light.
Right.
And I'm like, how do we articulate that without it always being us in front of people? So like when you reach out to us, I'm like,
Right.
fantastic, because I noticed that you did the video piece of it too.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if he posts that and you put that on our website and our about us,
Yeah.
especially nowadays where people were like, they might not read it, but they'll go to the video and watch it. You know? So I'm like, that'd be fantastic. That's us being able to pitch without, you know, having to physically do it.
For sure.
You know? So I was like, oh, fantastic. You post these all on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Post them all too. And that was the big point of it, is that if I'm reaching out to people to get them on my podcast, I want them to realize that this is also a piece of marketing material that they can use.
Yeah. And what I love about it is it's not us recording something, it's you doing something.
Yeah.
And then we put that up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think people connect with that. Oh, and I think it's good to hopefully I hope we get a ton of attention. Everybody watches the video and sees your stuff. So I think a lot of people, it's almost like the word that comes to mind is like a networking thing, but it's not really that. It's, oh, here's somebody doing something interesting and wants to bring somebody interesting, and then people, it's real, you know, and I hope, you know, this comes off as a real conversation. People like that.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that's what's up. That's cool. How do you, actually, something I didn't ask is, what kind of, as somebody from like the Middle Eastern community, obviously there's a huge population here.
Right.
Do you feel like they are supportive of small businesses?
I think they're supportive of, I very much think they're supportive of small businesses, whether you're Middle Eastern or not. I mean, there's a lot of immigrants here, and I've noticed, you know, if you know, oh, I'm an immigrant, I remember we're talking, like, where are you from, this and that, blah, 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 and it works.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of, the walls come down easier. But I found really across the board, no matter who we contact, whether they're immigrant or not, I think it's just much for Detroit.
Yeah.
Because there are so many immigrants that it's just everybody's kind of used to it, and the walls can come down very easily.
Yeah.
I will tell you, brought up, not to go off topic, okay, we're of Middle Eastern descent, and we have a lot of people that drink tea and all that.
Right.
So we're actually in Hashem's Market is it's like a Whole Foods for like the Arab American.
Yeah.
Like it's just a specialty, you know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting store. So okay, we decided to do demos like on Wednesdays where we'll put a cafe with brewed tea ready to go. The owner there, he kind of with people waiting in line, he'll put a cup for them so they can purchase. And it did really well the first time we had gone through. So we tried the different flavors and everything. Then when we tried our Assam, which is I should have brought you some. Which is I'll get you some. Which is some of our, I think it's for our basic black tea, it's just delicious. Do you
I
like it?
had it when you brought
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
I think it's just delicious, and I love how the leaves get big and all that kind of stuff. But it's a nice basic black tea you can have all the time. It's similar to the black tea that like the Lebanese and Syrian community will have.
Yeah.
So I was like, how is this gonna do against, honestly, cheaper in cost? And I personally think quality for some of the teas that are there, how's it gonna do? You know? And so I spent a little more time when I was there, and people looked at me, wow, that's expensive. compared to other stuff. Now they're different teas. It's not an Assam tea, you know.
Yeah.
And the other tea does go bitter much more quickly. And I noticed,
Yeah.
and like I'm the type that will say, pour me the first cup or I'm not having it, because it was bitter right away. One of our most popular teas, Assam, if it were except where people are already drinking a black tea, you know.
Did not do so well.
Did not do so well. So it's just it's interesting. You have to see the pockets that you're going in, and that's the thing about Metro Detroit. You got all these pockets, so we gotta understand. You know, if you go to a pocket where they drink, I don't know, something similar to our cinnamon orange, right? That might not be popular because now we're competing against that, and what's the price point and all that kind of stuff. So that's interesting.
You know what I did notice about that is like at the Easter market, everybody is willing. We're a small business, right? And everybody was supportive down there, and everybody was supportive of the fact that we were a small business and we were willing to try us over other stuff that they can find in the grocery store. Because tea, you have stuff that's, you have stuff that's $2 or $3 or $4, which obviously were more expensive than that. And a lot of people were willing to pay extra because of the fact that we were a small business and we're in Detroit.
That makes sense.
Detroit has a very strong brand. So.
Yeah, if you slap Detroit on something, then somebody's gonna pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's gonna be a good thing or a bad thing.
Depending on who's doing the slapping and what brand and
Yeah, exactly.
what they're planning to do.
You know the story behind Shinola?
No, tell me.
So they did like a research because he wanted to start a business somewhere with watches. I think the founder of Shinola used to work at the Fossil,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
So did Shinola start with the bikes first, then the watches?
I thought they did the watches first.
Was it the watches first?
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, they were trying to figure out where are we going to do this. We want to do it in the U.S., have a U.S. made type thing. So they did a research study and they said, okay, here's a pen. Okay, it's made in China. How much would you pay for it? And I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 10 cents. Okay, it's made in the USA. How much should you pay for it? $1. Okay, it's made in Detroit. How much should you pay for it? Or they listed all these cities. Detroit was one of those ones that's like $10, like something like some huge number compared. You know, it was like a proportion like that. So there's this perception of Detroit, which is interesting. Which we're lucky. We're from
it makes
here.
sense, right? Manufacturing companies, the car companies for so long.
But you would think, you know, in the media, oh, Detroit being bankrupt and you know,
Right.
these bad things that are happening in Detroit, it's almost like a really, and it's like, it makes you realize that, you know, maybe it's not, people don't have the worst impression, you know, with you know, the things that were, I would say were happening. I mean, the city's making a huge comeback,
Yeah.
you know. But we found that interesting. Now, it's not that it necessarily influenced our decision. We have to have it in Detroit versus Cleveland. We're here,
Right.
you know what I mean? But it was a positive thing, you know.
Yeah. No, I definitely think people are willing to pay a premium price for a Detroit-based product. Wasn't Shinola not making their watches in Detroit earlier?
They assemble them.
Yeah.
That's what I think what happened is like the parts. Don't quote me on this, but I think the parts weren't made here, but then they come here, and then they were put together. And then I think they may have moved. And I don't know if they put them together in Detroit anymore at all. I think the bikes may still be,
Yeah, they make the bikes in shop. I went to
Yeah.
one of those.
Nice.
Yeah, those are cool.
but I don't know if the watches are anymore.
Right.
I don't
That's
know. I
interesting.
don't know. They've done so much. I mean, Shinola has watches. They have bikes. They have turntables, and they're gonna have a hotel.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the hotel.
Right. It'll look good.
It'll look good. It'll look good.
I wonder if they'll serve Retea there.
We should know.
There's a new hotel, the Siren.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. I
I
feel
just saw
that,
them on Instagram.
yeah. I mean, that'd be sweet.
You were thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out the whole thing. You know what's difficult is we've gone into a couple of cafes and we won't talk to you about tea. It's still that. So the analogy I give, if you look at coffee back in the 80s, right? It was the Folgers, whatever you had to have because you just needed the coffee. The taste just was not there, right?
Yeah.
But now if you look at what happened in the 90s, 2000s now, did the coffee bean itself change? No. Access to quality, perception, flavor, brewing, the Starbucks and Seattle's Best and local mom and pop shops that came in and said, well, what are we going to do with it? How can we make this better? You know, this thing you're not going to change the coffee bean, but you know, access to the varieties and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there's perception that had to be broken down, and that's really again the same thing falls for tea. And that's what we're trying at. And if you notice, there's big companies that are getting into the market. But hopefully we're the ones that change the perception.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I support you guys.
Thank you.
Cool. For people listening, can you tell people if you have anything coming out that's really exciting or where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us in all, if you're in the local Detroit area, all Westbournes. What is it? Livonia, Dearborn, Berkeley,
In Plymouth.
Plymouth. This is in Detroit. Yeah.
Nest. On Canfield in Detroit. Hashem's Market in Dearborn Heights. We're in a couple of pure Detroit locations. And then we're working on getting some more. And then also we have our website, getretea.com. You can purchase online and we'll ship anywhere in the United States. We're working on, right now we're a loose tea. We're working on a bagged solution. Trying to figure that whole piece out, making sure that we keep the quality from a whole leaf perspective. And then what people would want from there. I'd love in the next couple of years to have a cold iced tea kind of solution there. But yeah.
Cool. Well, Saad, Ali, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for listening, and until our next episode, stay tuned.